All right, everybody. I am here with the great Deborah Brock, the writer and director of. I always mess them up, and I'm going to do this throughout this Sleepaway Camp and Slumber Party Massacre. But Slumber Party Massacre II from 1987. How you doing, Deborah?
Pretty good. I'm here in sunny Palm Springs, California.
I envy you because I'm in New York on Long Island, and it is pretty cold actually right now. I have to throw this hoodie on. It's getting pretty
Mhm.
cold. We got someone already. What a film! See, we got fans of this movie.
That's great.
How you doing today? Hey, Ant, how you doing, man? Yeah. So this movie, for those who haven't seen it, who see this in the future, is very, very different than the first original Slumber Party Massacre, to say the least, which came out in '82. So, how did you get into, first of all, writing and directing? Did you start as a writer or directing? Tell us how you got into that whole business?
Oh, I started as a film editor in the editing room. Uh, First, I went to film school at UCLA, and then eventually I ended up as the head of post production for Roger Corman. Um, and I told Roger one day that I wanted to write and direct a film for him, and he surprised me by going, "Oh, well, I have one you could do right now. I sold the worldwide rights based on the title alone." And I
Wow.
said, "There's no script." And he goes, "No, it's just a title. You're going to have to write it." And I said, "What is it?" And he said, "Slumber Party Massacre Part 2."
I mean, that sounds just like something Roger did often because I always put him, Charles Band, and like Jim Wynorski is like those great low budget filmmakers that knew how to make a movie real fast on a low budget and still be able to turn out fun, entertaining movies. So I could see him just.
Mhm.
I know Charles Band did something similar with Stuart Gordon and said, there's a poster in his office for Castle Freak, and that was it. It was just a poster, and he just said, "You want to direct this movie? It just has to have a castle, has to have a freak in it, and that's it. And just here, go carte blanche with it." So that sounds like that's what happened. He just basically gave you carte blanche to go write this sequel.
Um, well, yeah, once I had determined that he had no script, I said, "Can I write it?" And he said, "Sure, someone better." Which was interesting because I wasn't particularly a big horror movie person at that
That
point.
was the question.
I had to go do a lot of research.
Okay.
And I think it's funny you brought up Stuart Gordon because Stuart Gordon and I worked together on a film for Disney called Honey, I Blew Up the Kid.
Yes. Yes.
Anyway, poor Stuart, he's not no longer with us. He was a great
Yeah.
guy.
I would have
Right.
loved to talk to Stuart. I had Brian Usna on a while back, and
Hmm.
great, great person too. I mean, we had a great time talking, and he had nothing but great things to say about Stewart. I mean, everybody I've had on who worked with Stuart Gordon, Charles Band, Richard Band, they all had nothing but the greatest things to say about the man.
No,
But
he was very creative and very, but at the same time down to earth and very nice to people. I
yeah,
really enjoyed uh, working with him on that film.
yeah. No, I mean, we lost him way too soon. So, speaking of down to earth, this movie, the sequel here that you got to write and direct, is anything but down to earth. This is one wild, out there, insane movie, and I love every second of it for it. I always have. This has always been my favorite in this franchise. Three, I never cared for. I didn't think that was anything, but I always thought it was very, very interesting and very cool that you were the only one for these three movies to both write and direct. So this was
Well,
your vision, like just completely.
yeah, like the old auteur theory. I'm the auteur of the film. Well, I realized since Roger said, "Well, you better write it. We don't have a script," that I could kind of make it anything I wanted as long as I included certain things that would make him happy.
Yeah.
So I went for it, and at one point, Beverly Gray, who was the story editor at that point, she had to read the screenplay. Roger would read them and make notes, but I think Beverly read them last or something. I don't know. And she said, "This is the craziest movie, but I love it."
Yeah.
Where did you get the idea for the driller killer, the guy at the guitar with the drill on the end of it? And I said, "Well, actually, from Doctor Strangelove," but even though
Okay.
that object does not appear in Doctor Strangelove, um, there was something about the character that Peter Sellers played where he was in a wheelchair and he seemed to be half robot. I don't know. I just got a feeling about it and decided to. Um, it's everything in it's an allegory, or a
Yeah.
metaphor.
Yeah. There's a lot of that throughout the whole.
Definitely for the way some guys treat their acts.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of metaphor in this movie, and a lot of surreal stuff too, which I always love. Just and the lighting too. The lighting, you guys did a great job with the lighting in this movie. There's a specific scene when they're in the bedroom a little later on, Courtney and one of the other ones, and he's drilling the door, and the lights start coming through the holes that he's making in the door.
Yeah,
That's
the different
very,
colored
very,
lights are coming
yeah.
through the
I
door.
love that.
Yeah.
That looks
Well,
so good.
I'll tell Tom Calloway, the DP.
Yeah, let them know.
He
That
will
was that
appreciate
that's
the way it
great.
looks. I think he
I
knows
always love
that, but it was actually I think the second feature film he ever was a DP on. So,
oh, really?
it
Interesting.
was the first one I'd ever directed and his second. So we were we were a bunch of basically kids running around
Yeah,
having some fun.
and it shows because I mean, that's probably the best word I can use to describe this movie to anybody. It's just fun. It's one of those movies that's like it's a popcorn flick. I don't like that term because popcorn's good anytime, but
That's true.
with this movie, it's just one of those movies you just get around with a group of friends, you throw this on, and half of them will say, "What the hell are we watching?" And the other half will just be laughing, roaring, just enjoying the hell out of it. And the cast is great. You had Crystal Bernard, who she was pretty big back then
No,
on
she was a
TV.
big sitcom star.
Yeah,
She
Happy
was a
Days,
star of Wings. She
Wings.
was
Yeah,
on
that was the one.
Happy Days. She was on a sitcom about waitresses called Silver Spoons, I think was the name
Okay.
of it. She had been working in Hollywood, I think, since she was probably about 19 or maybe
Yeah.
even younger. Uh, yeah,
How did it come to having her come onto the project?
Uh, well, one thing you always need with a film is you need a good casting director. And the casting director, Kevin Albright, told me he had heard, I think, kind of in a Hollywood rumor mill kind of way, that Crystal was interested in making a horror film. And I
Okay.
said, all right, send her the script, see if she wants to make this one. And it turned out that she did. So,
Oh, that's great.
and, uh, she was a big, big pro by the time I worked with her. So she was very easy and fun to work with.
Yeah.
The
A
funny
lot of
thing is, she got a crush on the guy who played the driller killer,
really? Oh,
Honest Village.
I, yeah. Well, how do you say it? Atanas Illich, right? Is
Yeah,
how you pronounce it.
yeah.
And his father was the founder of Little Caesars
Yeah,
Pizza,
and
right?
I think that Thomas helps run it now. He
Yeah. Wow.
eventually left Hollywood and went back to, I don't remember if it's Cleveland or Detroit is where that companies are from, but one of those, and went to work for his dad.
Yeah.
Um, But we
Um,
used to get the funniest fan letters for him at Rogers because people would see him in this movie and we get these fan letters that would go, I think he's about 6'2", and and he was more like 5'8". In fact, he was the first actor I saw for that role, but
I read that
I made
once.
him come back like 2 or 3 times. I kept resisting. I mean, I kept looking to see who else was out there,
Yeah,
and some kind of aging teen stars came in too, but they weren't
it was
really
just he
right,
kept
and
pulling.
most of
You
them,
kept getting pulled back to him, I guess, right?
yeah, most of them had terrible attitudes,
Yeah,
and I kept getting pulled back to him, and then I went, "Well, you you can use the camera to make him look as tall as you want. It's just
yeah.
how you compose the shot and where you put the camera." So
Mhm.
and he could do all this stuff. He could really sing and dance.
Yeah,
He
and
had
that
put out
that
an album and been in a couple of music videos. So
and that
I
was
was like,
important
quit,
because the music in
quit,
this movie.
yeah, quit ignoring the obvious, Deb.
Yeah. I
But
mean, I can't
the
I
first
can't picture
person,
anyone playing
what?
him. I can't picture anybody but him playing this role. Like anyone on the planet except for this guy playing the role of the driller killer in this
No,
movie.
he really wanted to do it, and he totally inhabited it, and
Yeah.
he was a lot of fun to work with, and 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 he was a nice guy in person. He wasn't a scary guy like he is in the film. And Crystal thought he was very cool.
Yeah, that's funny. I didn't know that. Yeah, we had the whole cast is so much fun because we have Julia Cummins, right, who was in Friday the 13th Part 5, and I always forget the other actress's name. Is it Heidi?
Oh,
Heidi,
Heidi
right?
Kozak.
Kozak, that's it. Who
Oh
went on
yeah,
to be in a Friday movie.
Heidi Kozak's been in a million things, and she was
Yeah,
in, I don't
she
know,
had a
three
good
or
career.
four horror movies.
Yeah,
Yeah, Heidi was literally a blast to work with.
yeah.
She
That
just
pimple
was so
scene.
much fun, and just embrace the whole thing. That was the first film I'd ever directed. If I knew they weren't all going to be that fun,
Yeah, right. It would have been, I don't know, but I
no,
mean, the musical aspect. Who wrote all the music? First of all, like like Tokyo Convertible and and Let's Buzz. Who wrote all of that?
basically people I knew who had bands.
Okay.
Uh, the guy who wrote "Let's Buzz," Duke Logan, was a well-known blues guy around L.A. and he was he did a lot of studio work as a harp player. He was a very good harmonica player,
Okay.
but I liked his rough kind of voice.
Yeah.
And he had written a song called "Let's Buzz," and I don't know, we had a mutual friend or something that introduced us, and he said, "I've got this song. I think it'd be good for your movie." When you start looking for this stuff, this is what's so fun about Hollywood is it's so full of talented people that
Yeah.
when you start looking around and asking around, even if you don't have a lot of money, which we definitely didn't, we had like a nickel. Um, you can find people who are really interested in participating and are very talented. No, we recorded all of Thomas's music, and one of the famous studios in Hollywood, I can't remember which one it was now, but down on Sunset Boulevard.
It
And
used to be famous.
yeah, I'm not even sure it's there anymore, but uh, we were I wanted to let us, but we put Juke in the bathroom so we
Oh
could,
yeah.
recorded him in a bathroom because that was the
Yeah,
way
for the
you got
reverb.
yeah, that's the way you got the best scary reverb sound on
Yeah,
somebody. So
that's
we
great.
did all the old tricks, which were really fun, and
Yeah, I
stuff.
mean, I mean, the whole guitar drill is probably the prop from a horror film or any movie that I want. Like that
Yeah.
I've always want. I'm a guitar player my whole life, and ever since I saw this movie, I was a teenager probably when I saw this. Yeah, like early teens. And
Yeah.
ever since I said, that's it. Like that's the prop. That's the horror movie prop that I needed. I needed. Whatever happened to it? And how many were there? Like, were
there
there a
were
few?
there were three.
Okay.
Um, there was one that was what we called the show guitar, which which was very, very detailed and had the drill that went around on top of it. And the
Okay.
reason that what drove it and made the drill revolve was was a power drill inside of the
Oh, okay. That's
body of
interesting.
the yeah, an early version of a battery power drill. What do they call it? Machida was
I
inside
would have
of
never guessed. I would have never known that. That's cool.
right. So it was very heavy
Yeah,
too,
I can
because
imagine.
power drills were heavy back then,
Yeah.
you know. And then we had one that uh, looked as pretty good, but it was entirely plastic, and the drill didn't go around, and that was the stunt guitar.
Okay.
So
Whenever
that
he's whenever
yeah,
he was
whereas
dancing or
Thomas
running
could
around.
it was much lighter, and Thomas could wave it around, and attack people with it, but you
Yeah.
never saw it usually for long enough. Plus, there were sound effects to realize that the drill wasn't going around on that, which is
Mm.
one of the fun things about movie making magic. And then we had another one that was even plainer. And I don't remember, I think it might have been sort of a prototype that the guys did when
Okay.
they were coming up with it. But I ended up with the show guitar. I don't know what happened to the stunt guitar. Maybe Atanas has it. Actually, I hope he does.
I was just
Um,
gonna say that would be real fitting if he did end up
he
with it.
deserved
He
it.
should. Yeah, he should have it.
Yeah,
He's the driller killer.
after a film, sometimes these things have a tendency to quote walk off or
Yeah.
fall off the truck. But
Yeah.
I ended
Yeah.
up with the
That's
show
the official
guitar.
version. The official
Yeah,
version.
right. And then uh, I put it on eBay because it was just sitting in the back of a closet. I really wasn't taking very good care of it, and it was
Yeah.
beginning to. Uh, it had been cast originally in fiberglass, and some of those
Oh,
great
wow.
swooping curves and
Yeah, the design
points
is
on it and
so
stuff
cool
were
on it.
starting to degrade and fall off. And I thought, Jesus, I'm not taking care of this thing. I don't even really know how. Um, let's see what it's worth on eBay. And a guy who, from my memory, is he was from either Kentucky or Tennessee, who he did his whole life was about collecting cool stuff from horror movies, original
Okay.
props. He said he had a warehouse full of them. Anyway,
Wow.
he bought it from me, and
Nice.
he objected to me wanting to spend so much money on shipping it to him because we built a crate for it and
Yeah.
encased it in styrofoam.
Yeah, just in case.
And I said, unless you want this thing in pieces,
Yeah, yeah.
we,
Because like you
we,
said,
we
it's been sitting around, a
yeah,
while now.
it's very fragile. Actually, we've got to ship it like an art piece,
Yeah.
and he saw the light. But I'm sorry, I don't remember his name now, and I don't know what he did with all his cool props. He should open a museum,
Right?
frankly.
Yeah, yeah. If he has
So
a
that's what
warehouse full,
happened to it. It went to live with someone who loves those kind of things in their
that's
collection.
that's great. And
You
I
know,
mean, it's deserving of somebody who has that much love for horror films and stuff because it is, I think, one of the greatest props. I mean, even for people who don't love this movie or care for it, they can't deny how cool that guitar drill is and the driller killer
yeah,
himself. You can't.
you may not like the film, but you can like the
Yeah.
prop.
Absolutely, and that's one thing with any type of movie that I always try to find any type of silver linings or good things in a movie because no matter what the movie is, whether you like it or not, there's still some positives you can pull out of most of them. So when people just blanket throw, I hate this movie, like there's zero things that you can pull out of it that was creative or interesting. I kind of, not really pay attention and take them as seriously because you can
Yeah.
kind of pull anything positive out of something, at
Well,
least, unless
you
it's,
can usually
unless,
find a good line or a good performance or a good
yeah,
scene or an interesting
exactly.
prop or something. I mean, it's really easy to criticize movies, but they're really hard to make. So,
Yeah, exactly.
shut
That's
up
which is
if you
why
haven't
it's
made one.
exactly, which is why I always try to find those, like, even if it's like you said, like it's a character or a line delivery or one scene that was great and the rest sucked. It's
Right,
something that is
right.
something that when I go and review a movie, say like, I didn't care for it, but this scene was good and this was good too. But like, would I recommend it? No. But that I feel is a lot better constructive criticism than just this movie sucks, which you hear way too much today. And it's unfortunate because, like you said, it's a lot of work, money, and time and passion goes into all of this,
Oh,
no
well,
matter
these
what movie.
especially these indie films, like all the ones that were made for Roger and weren't made for big movie studios. People get paid very little to create them compared to how much work you put into it. So
Oh, absolutely,
anyone who thinks you get rich from that stuff is an idiot. You're doing it because you love it, you know.
exactly. I mean, and
And
and that's what shines through the most,
well,
and
yeah, I think that passion comes through, especially if the cast and crew were into it and we're all having a good time with
yeah,
it. You know,
yeah.
I mean, my favorite scene, I think, in the whole movie is when the driller killer dances around the house to the Let's Buzz song
Oh,
and
that's
slides
the best scene in
down
the
the
movie.
stairs
That's
and
the best.
then walks down the hallway and a bottle of champagne falls right into his hand and
Yeah.
you know
He
it's
takes it, he
it
drinks it, then he gets the joint out, he smokes it, and he puts the sunglasses, all of that. That
right,
whole
he's
sequence is
having a
great.
very good time.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's
you
the
know
thing with sequels that, and there's a lot of sequels that I prefer to the original. And a lot of them are 80s movies too, like 80s slashers that had franchises. Always happens to be the second one that happens to be my favorite. And a lot
Mm,
of the times it's because that movie or that sequel is so different from the
right,
original. And it
right.
took a ton of risks and it just like threw so many things at it. And maybe it didn't work for everybody, but when I see risks like that taken and it's not the same old thing and it works for me, that's just an instant success. And that's how this movie was. Because I do like the first movie a lot, but it's no
Yeah,
comparison to me. Like it's just like
yeah.
this is the more
No,
out there one, of course, but it's so much more fun.
yeah, I liked the first one when I saw it. I had no idea I was going to be doing the sequel when
That
I
was
saw it.
yeah, I was gonna ask when did you see it? The originals, when it came out, or did you see it when you
Oh, no,
later on?
I saw it when I was working for Roger in the
Okay.
80s. I had not seen it earlier. Actually, I saw it when I was an editor because he was selling all his films at that point to television, and we had to cut TV versions of it, which is, as you can imagine, was difficult
Yeah.
sometimes. So
Mhm.
I was trying to figure out how to do a TV version of it that could get on the air.
And
You
then it
know,
can
I
make
think
have
the shower
yeah,
scene, I think the shower scene went, in the editing bag.
okay.
But
Because yeah, this is a movie that is very dreamlike and as we said, surreal. So if you cut something wrong, then it could throw a lot more off and people are
I
confused.
don't know that Slumber Party Massacre has actually ever been on broadcast television. Uh,
I don't know if the second one
it's
has
been
it.
on a lot of streaming and cable
Yeah.
channels, but I don't think it was ever on regular broadcast TV. I think it was too
I don't
strange
remember
and
seeing it. I don't
weird
remember
for them.
seeing it on TV. I remember renting it from Blockbuster back in the day. That's how I remember seeing it.
Right, right.
Is so I don't I think you're right. They might have never broadcast a version on TV ever. I know the first one did. The original, I think, got
Well,
ran on
yeah,
TV
I
now.
cut it. I cut a lot of the
Yeah,
stuff out
yeah,
of
yeah. Okay, yeah. So there you go.
it.
That's
But
funny.
uh,
Well, who did the effects work for two? Because the effects are great. I mean, was there stuff? I'm sure there was a lot of stuff cut out because
well,
it's
yeah.
not as graphic.
Now you're embarrassing me. You're gonna have to go to the credits because I don't. It was two
Oh,
guys. They're on the. I think they're on the head credits.
okay.
Uh,
Shout out
uh,
to the two guys who
yeah,
were
the
on
two
the
guys.
effects.
Well, I think one of them is no longer with us, unfortunately.
Oh,
But
they did great work.
yeah, that was another thing where somebody said, "Oh, you should go see these guys. I think they would love to do this," and they did.
Jumped at it.
And you know, I didn't draw them a picture of the guitar. They actually designed the
Yeah,
specifics of the guitar. I just said, of course, it's red and it's really cool looking and it's got a drill coming out of the top of it. They're
yeah,
the ones who put all those swooping cool points and everything on it.
yeah. No, that's
They
great.
also did all the other stuff.
The chicken scene.
Yes, the chicken crawling up
That's
poor
great.
Crystal Bernard.
Yeah,
Uh, uh,
shooting that whatever that liquid is,
yeah,
blood or
no,
whatever
they
it's
they really
supposed to
got
be.
into the gross side of it.
Yeah, the
They even
pimple.
did the special effects makeup. They made Heidi's giant zit that
Yeah, that's a
exploded
great
off
scene
the
too.
side of her face. You
That's
know,
another thing this movie doesn't get enough credit for is the effects work. I mean, it really has some wild effects. That pimple explosion, that's an
well, that's why I'm
explosion.
so embarrassed that I think one of them's last name was Feeney, but I just look it up on the internet. Their names are there. And
Yeah, I was actually
they
I was
did
gonna do it
they
now,
did,
but
it wasn't the only film they did. They were pros. They did lots of
yeah,
horror films and they did a good job with it, you know, especially because we didn't have a lot of money, you know. But I thought I thought the pus coming out of the zit was really exceptional.
it really was because it. I can't watch that scene without just like wanting to gag. And there's not
Yeah.
much in horror or in any movie, and I can see any type of gore, so it doesn't bother me. But there's certain things in a few movies. That's one. I don't know if you've ever seen Dead Alive or Brain Dead by Peter Jackson, but there's a pudding scene that also involves pus for some reason. It's got to be pus then. Pus just gets something out of it that I don't
Well,
like.
pus is really disgusting. Anyway,
Yeah, I guess it's not that abnormal that
we
I'm
had to do
complaining about it.
we had to do pus tests where we were testing different concoctions to get the
See
right
which one looks
color
the best,
and the
works.
right consistency, that the guys could make it squirt out of,
See,
her
that's something
face.
you should have taped it back then because then we would have like the Slumber
I
Party
remember
Massacre
we were
2
all standing around
pimple
very.
pus test tapes
Yeah,
that
no,
we
we
would
were all
have today.
standing around one night in between shots, very seriously, because we were already shooting, looking at pus tests and going, "No, that one's too green. No, that
Yeah,
one's too yellow. No, that one's too thin. It needs to be thicker." I
that's funny.
mean, it's
And that
wild the
it
stuff you end
shows.
up doing.
I was just gonna say it shows like that's another example of just how many little things go into making a movie. I mean, you're sitting there colorizing pus and which one's the best there is. I mean, that's one little thing out of everything that has to be done and on a time schedule at that. I mean, it's really impressive. And
Oh,
then, like I
yeah,
said, Corman.
we had like one evening to figure it out.
Did,
Probably.
didn't you guys have a code word? I read this on IMDb a while back for whenever Corman was on set to like notify everybody.
Yeah, uh, the my producing partner Don Daniel invented a code word for Roger because Roger's office was miles away from the studio in the Brentwood, the Shishi part of LA. But he would occasionally get into his car and come over to the studio, which was about 2 blocks from Venice Beach, and was a former lumber yard that he had bought and turned into this little studio. He would come over without announcing himself. And so Dawn informed the receptionist who sat in the first room you walked into, of course, that if she saw Roger in the parking lot, she needed to call around to, we had landline phones back then, to
Yeah.
all the different phone stations and tell people that, and I'm trying to remember what her,
The
I think
name?
it was Evelyn. Anyway, it was a girl's name.
Jennifer is what it says on IMDb. Jennifer.
It does?
Yeah,
I'm not
that's what it
sure
says on
that's
IMDb.
right. But
Could be
anyway,
wrong.
I'll have to ask Dawn. I'm sure Dawn will remember.
Yeah.
Um, they would, and then we could talk about the fact that he was around. And if he heard us, he would know, you know, he could be in the room and you could be on the phone. You went, yeah, Jennifer's here. She's going to do it. And the other person would go, oh, all right, gotcha.
Yeah. And then gay pick a phone up. They call it. Hey, Jennifer's on. She's around. Hey, just let you know. Bye bye now. That's
Right,
too funny.
right.
My friend
You
here,
know,
Video Tasties, he runs a great channel. He's doing
he would,
Slumber Party 1 and 2, Watch Party in 2 weeks in his pajamas.
oh, that sounds great. That sounds like a
Right?
lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. I was thinking that too because maybe I'll do that later tonight or tomorrow, guys. Maybe I'll do a Slumber Party Massacre 2 watch along because I haven't done a watch of that or the first one. So maybe we'll do that later. Maybe we'll watch this movie, even though I just watched it earlier
What do you
before
mean
this.
by a watch?
Yeah,
Like
usually like what
watch.
we do like in the horror community here, like we'll like put the movie on and like at the same time, like we'll like do like a countdown and then we'll just watch the movie in the chat. We'll watch it and we'll talk about it and stuff while watching the movie. So it's kind of like a director's commentary, but we're not anywhere near the
Yeah,
directors. We're just
right.
commentators talk about it.
You're just enjoying the movie.
Yeah, and talking
Well,
about it and whatever else comes up and stuff like that.
about this time last year, I mean, as it gets on towards Halloween,
Yeah.
Spam 2, as the people who worked on it call it sometimes, rears its head. Last year, they showed it for the first time at the Chicago Horror Massacre. Have you ever heard of
Oh, really?
this festival? Yeah,
Um,
it's
no.
24 hours of horror movies that they do
Oh, wow.
every year uh, at a theater, big theater downtown. Uh, and they flew me out for a Q&A
That's cool.
afterwards, and that was really fun because the theater was full of the kind of
Yeah.
people who would enjoy that film.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, so Nightmare on Elm Street, I'm sure was had a little bit of influence, right, on this movie with the
Oh,
dream killer and everything,
yeah,
or
because they're both about dreams
yeah,
in a way. I guess I just decided to one up them with the guitar, but
yeah, yeah, definitely did.
I,
I
I
mean,
I knew. I don't remember the moment I thought of it, but pretty early on, I went, this is going to be like a musical horror movie,
yeah,
because these girls are going to have a band and they're going to get attacked by this guy who's kind of a greasy rock and roll dude.
yeah, like a
And
rockabilly greaser
yeah, like a rockabilly
maniac.
maniac, because everyone's seen the first one now, and it's just basically just a crazy guy running around with a drill.
Yeah,
You have to do
a regular
something
human being.
more the second time, which may be why you like the second sequel better.
Yeah, it's good because the first one, it's just a regular human being. It's just a escaped mental patient, right?
Right,
Who
right.
is
I
the
mean, he
driller
was
killer.
scary, but
Oh yeah, I mean, no, but there's no friendly driller killer running
no,
after
no,
me. I know.
no. But
Then I said, "Oh, it's cool," but no, he was scary. But
well, the other
I
thing
think
was,
he's scary in this one just because of how his charisma, and even though he's over the top and he's like you said, he's singing full on songs and stuff. That's terrifying because that's a complete nutcase. Even if it wasn't a dream type, which is something I do want to get into, the whole dream, because the ending of this movie is a little confusing to say the least. But
Well, it's been sort of controversial.
yeah, yeah, definitely, because we
You
don't
know,
know. I don't know how much you want to say about it though, because I know some people don't want to give answers to ambiguous
well,
endings or
if there's people watching this that've never seen it, I don't want to
yeah.
give
So that's
away a major spoiler. You
yeah,
know, it's
that's
it's
true.
it's just there's a
There's levels
Crystal.
to the
Crystal
movie.
does not Crystal. Um, God, what's the character's name?
Courtney.
Yeah, Courtney. Courtney does not end up that well at the end of the film.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Okay, that's pretty much how I always took it. But
Yeah.
even that too, like the ambiguity to it. I love that in movies for the most part, unless it's something that just doesn't make sense and it's just being ambiguous for the sake of it. But it all works. Like it all lines up. They explore her trauma and everything throughout the whole movie. I mean,
Oh,
her all she's going through all of this after surviving the first movie, which it's so different, right, from the first one. When was the decision made? Did Roger make it, or was it, since it was up to you to write it, that it wasn't going to really be that close of a continuation to this original? That was going to be a
no,
completely
Roger had
different
no idea what I was up to.
thing. Okay,
He read the script,
that's funny.
and then he read the script. He just made some comments like opportunity for some nude breasts here
Yeah, yeah.
when they had the chicken
The
fight
pillow fight.
because
Yeah.
Roger knew what sold films. He wanted to
Oh
make
yeah,
sure there was at least a little bit of nudity in it, you
yeah.
know. Uh, at
And thank
one
you,
point,
Juliet Cummins, if you ever see this for that.
yeah, at one point he came up with Roger was always coming up with money saving ideas, which we frequently had to talk him out of. For a
Yeah,
while, he had this money saving idea that we should do the film and not do it SAG with union actors.
yeah,
And let me tell you, actors who aren't in the union it can be hard to find a good actor in Hollywood who's not in the union. No,
yeah.
no offense to them, but some of them it takes them a while to get in, but usually they finally do. And and I was just like, oh shit, you know, how are we gonna,
Yeah,
I
because
don't
it's a
want to work with
movie, and
actors that are
yeah,
totally
you're banking a lot
unprofessional.
on this. You're banking a
Yeah,
lot on
you
making a
know.
movie. You want it to be as
So
well made as possible
so
with the
I
best
so I
actor.
said, Roger, that really worries me. And he said, why? And I said, well, because I don't know if you've noticed, but all the good looking girls are in SAG. They always get in SAG really easily. The
Yeah.
producers get them in. And that made sense to him for some reason. He went, oh, yeah, okay, well, forget the non union thing then. Because
That's funny.
if he wanted anything in it, he wanted pretty girls.
Yeah.
So that's what
And that
we
and I
did.
mean that's why it became this whole franchise kind of expanded into a whole universe, massacre universe, because then you have the
Oh,
sorority house massacre films.
oh, well, I was, I was, I was a real Roger apple of his eye,
Yeah,
protege after that film because that movie made so much money. It made more money than the first one.
yeah.
I mean, it actually got won a. They used to have these prizes for how many for the sales of videotapes,
Oh, for the VHS?
for
Okay,
the
yeah.
VHS, and
Okay.
it went gold, kind of like a gold record
Oh,
or
really?
whatever,
Okay.
And I sat down at one point and figured out how much money Roger had made off that film. Because we made that film for less than $400,000. And at one point, I figured out that it had grossed over 6 million. So,
Yeah. No, I
of
mean,
course, none
it's
of that went in our pockets, but
yeah. It's crazy how that works. It really is.
yeah, well, Roger was pretty. upfront about that compared to a lot of Hollywood producers because he would go, well, what Roger would say is, because, it was very, very hard to break into making movies.
Oh, of
And he'd
course.
go, you get the career, I get the money. That was his
I mean, you can't put it any more bluntly honest than that. I mean, that sounds like that's just the way he was too. Because I've heard, as I said, multiple accounts of stories about him. He sounds
right.
like
Well,
a
we all,
stern businessman, but a great person to work with at the same time.
well, he was very imaginative himself. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I remember the first time I showed him the completed cut of the film, and he really liked it. And a guy who had been the head of production for Roger, but had moved on. He had been at the same screening and he saw it. He came up to me and he said, "What does Roger think about this? Does Roger know it's a comedy?" And I said, "I guess so. We're all laughing."
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
you know, it doesn't seem to bother him. Well, it's a black comedy.
yeah, yeah,
Because it had the things in it that he wanted, and uh, later on, because Slumber Party Massacre II had done so well, I proposed that we do Rock and Roll High School Forever, a sequel to Rock and Roll High
okay,
School, and it only took him I wrote him a treatment of, it was another musical. Um, uh, uh, and it only took him a weekend to make up his mind that, okay, go ahead. This sounds good.
yeah,
No. One of the things we liked about him was he didn't ooh and ah for too long. He either said no right
yeah.
off
Or
the
said, all
bat,
right,
or he said yeah. And he said no to me sometimes, and he'd have a reason. It'll be too expensive, or you know, we'll never get a star for it, or something like that.
yeah.
It, it wasn't just off the top of his head. He was an extremely bright person.
Oh yeah, and
We
he's
we
and
all
he
we
works
all had
so
a
much that the experience alone that he has in just dealing in the business and work making all
well,
these movies
we all
over those
had a
years.
love hate relationship with him.
Yeah,
And when he passed away last spring,
mm.
people who worked for him, we kept calling each other up and going, I can't believe he's dead. I thought he was like a redwood tree. He just lived forever. You know?
That's funny. It's great hearing those stories about him because yeah, he was just like I said, one of the kings of low budget filmmaking, like in just every way, and then he was a genius business wise too.
Why? Well, he said something about filmmaking that was very, very true. He said the trouble with making movies is it's a business that's an art, and the trouble with it is it's an art that's a business. And he pointed out how you had these two aspects of it, which were always kind of fighting, could be fighting with each other, you
Oh
know.
no, it's absolutely true because, like you said, at the end of the day, these movies. They are about the money. They're about making money back. But all
Right.
the creativity and the passion that goes into it, that's where the heart of it is, and that's what's really, I think, what resonates with the most people, and that's what's going to determine whether a movie succeeds or not.
Well, yeah. Yeah, there's two things. It's really good that it make money. Yeah. If it gets enough good reviews, like and wins some big prizes at film festivals, or
Yeah,
gets nominated for Academy Award or something like that, that that can keep you out of what we call filmmaker jail. It'll be, well, it didn't do well, but boy, did the critics like it, and it won a bunch of prizes. That's not as good as
yeah,
it making money. The best thing if it does both things, you know.
yeah,
If it gets good reviews, wins prizes, and makes money, you've hit the jackpot. But
yeah.
you got to do one or the other, or you can't get money to make another film.
That's true too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the long run thing. Anybody in the chat have any questions for Deborah? I want to be respectful of your time. Thank you so much for coming on and talking about this, because this has been a blast.
Oh, yeah, I like to talk about it. It's just embarrassing because sometimes you can't remember people's names anymore.
It's all right. I just watched the movie a little bit ago. I can't remember
Yeah, this
some
is
of
all
the
your
names.
fault.
Yeah, don't blame me. I'll take the blame. I take the blame all the time. I'm trying to think of any last minute things that I might have that'll pop into my head before knowing me. Then you'll be gone. I'll say there's the question I wanted to ask. But I think I covered pretty much everything. I mean,
Well,
this movie's
can I tell you about the
absolutely,
time we fooled Roger? And
absolutely. I would love
um,
to do that.
when I guess we'll say Jennifer, uh, love to
There you
hear what
go.
you have
Love
to
to hear you.
say.
There you go. You got the green light.
Yeah, right. Anyway, Jennifer was prowling around the studio one day to see what we were up to with the massacre movie, and it was the day we were doing the shot where the driller killer slides down the banister of the staircase.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, the art department, which was a hardworking but inexperienced art department, didn't have a roof over the stairwell, and we were going to be shooting up the stairwell as it slid
Okay.
down. And I said, guys, we can't do this. You guys, you got to fix this because we're looking at the rafters in the studio. So they went all crazy with probably some pieces of cardboard doing them. But anyway, it was, and at the, and Roger was getting impatient. And at the same time, Tom, the Callaway, the DP, came to me and he goes, we have to change the film magazine. We ran out of film on the last shot,
All right.
which was a thing. You had to
Yeah,
put the
yeah.
magazine, the part of the camera called the magazine, in a black bag, and the poor assistant film the film assistant had to take the film out of it and
Yeah.
put it in a plastic bag without exposing it to light and put new unexposed film in it, all doing it by touch in a
Yeah.
bag, you
Wow.
know. So you really had to have good assistants or they'd ruin the film. Anyway, and I said, "Oh, okay." Well, Roger comes up to me and he goes, "What are we waiting for?" And I said, "Well, I didn't say anything, and I'm glad I didn't, about we'd run out of film and they were changing the mag. I said, "Well, we have to shoot up and see. You could see that it's not a real house." And he said, "Well,
Yeah.
why don't you just change the shot?" Well, that was one of my favorite shots in the movie, and I did not want to change it, but I didn't want
Yeah,
to get
no.
into a fight with Roger. So I went to Tom and I said, if you put the magazine, even if it's empty, on the camera and press the power button, will the little red light on the side of the camera come on? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, do it because we're going to fake the shot to make Roger happy. So we shot the shot, we changed the shot, and we shot it with no film in the camera. And he was happy, and
Okay.
he went back to his office, and he never knew what we did.
Oh, that's funny.
Anyway, and then we got it all together and did the real shot, and stuff. So
That's great. He's thinking you're filming, and you just, you just all right, good. He's gone. Jennifer left. We could
yeah,
do our shot again.
I think if even if someone had told him that story afterwards, and someone might have, but probably
Yeah,
not.
he would have laughed, I'm sure.
He would have laughed,
Oh yeah,
because he always appreciated his filmmakers being smart, you know,
yeah.
and clever. I mean, he wouldn't like it if you were uh, just,
Well, he put a lot of trust in it in
yeah,
his
he did,
filmmakers.
that you would make it okay, which you did, or you weren't gonna, you weren't gonna get any money from him again. Do you think this kind of B movies are gone now?
Yeah, do you think it's part of the reason why movies these days are garbage and nothing original is being made because big studios have nothing to rip off? I mean, that's a good point.
Well, that was the thing about B movies was, you know, uh, they didn't cost all that much, and we were doubly lucky because Roger had literally sold all the rights all across the world to the film already.
Yeah.
He already knew he was going to break even at the least on the
Oh yeah.
film, so we got to do a lot of crazy stuff, but um, that's what made B movies interesting was you kind of had to do crazy stuff because you
Yeah, yeah.
couldn't reproduce expensive things that the studio were doing. You had to have a crazy story or a crazy character. The reason
And
that
or
the
crazy effects and then
or crazy
all those things.
effects, right? Actually, the reason that so many of the studio films now are garbage is because they're all sequels of even
Yeah.
though I made as two sequels, they're not particularly imaginative sequels. And I also think they got on this hang up of making cartoon, what we call comic book movies,
Yeah, I don't like
with the
any of that.
Marvel
I
universe
don't like
and the
any of
DC
that.
universe and everything. I mean, when they first started out, yeah,
Yeah.
at the beginning, Superman and Batman were fun, but now they all seem to be too much alike and
It's
everything.
flooded the market
It's
completely.
flooded the market,
It's
and
terrible. I can't
they've
stand it.
actually they've driven the kind of movie that's actually about real people doing things.
Yeah.
They've driven it over into the streaming services, and I think the studios are beginning to realize that. I've noticed there's more films this fall that are actually about something
Yeah.
than, The
Well, the
Adventurers 20 and a half.
yeah, I know, right? Like, how long are they going to keep going with it? I mean, I like some superhero stuff, like like Tim Burton's Batman films,
Well, that was a
and
great film. Yeah.
yeah, of course, like those type of things. But like this whole universe, MCU and DC and stuff, I've never gotten into it. I don't think I've seen one. I don't think I've seen any of them since they started
Well,
that whole universe off.
they become too much alike after a while.
Yeah, it's
And
not
and let me
imaginative.
tell you, it's a big financial disaster because they spend so much money on them that if they don't make money, it's not good.
Oh yeah, he said he's a huge comics collector for 40 years. Avengers
You
was
got
an
to be
important
over
film.
21.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
nothing against the Avengers the first
yeah,
time we see them. I mean, the first time I remember seeing a Batman movie, I think it was the first one, was the one that Tim Burton made. Before that, it was a TV show. So,
yeah. Well, that
you know,
was
it's too much alike, too much of the same crap after all.
it really is because
That's just
the
most studio
remakes alone.
executives now have, frankly, have MBAs and aren't creative people.
Yeah,
There used to be some studio executives who came out of journalism and writing and stuff who were more creative,
yeah,
frankly.
or even musicians who became filmmakers and any type of artist, anyone with that creative, talent and that need to create constantly.
Right.
Which
But when you spend $380 million on a film, you don't want to take any chances,
yeah,
frankly.
absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
And
That's the whole
and
business
that's
then.
when it becomes boring because
Yeah.
art is about taking chances.
I couldn't have said it better. I mean, that's beautifully said because it is, and that's why I said I think all of these type of sequels from the '80s and the '80s in general, that whole decade. I mean, it's the best for horror.
Well,
The
it was kind
'80s
of
for
the
me has
golden
always
age
been.
of horror, that's for
Oh
sure.
yeah, it was like the rebirth golden age. Since like the older golden age in like the 30s and 40s and everything. But I mean, it's nothing going to be like the '80s again. But the sequels to some of the movies that were made there took so many risks and like you said just had to be creative at a necessity just because of the budget alone that some these movies you guys were working with and just to see how all these years later that there's people here saying how much they love this movie. I've always loved this movie. It's great seeing that this movie is still relevant and has a a following all these years later. And thank you for bringing it to us, like from your mind, and bringing it right to us to watch, because it's a better world having Slumber Party Massacre 2 in it
Well,
than if it was not.
I'm glad
Yes.
because one of the first times I showed it was to a group of film students at USC. I don't remember why we went over there, but we showed it at USC to these film students, and some guy raised his hand and said, "Well, when somebody gets killed next week by a drill, aren't you going to feel really bad?" And I said, "Well, I'm sorry. I don't think this is going to happen because this is so fantastic." You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
we intentionally went out there, and some of the blood effects are, pretty cheesy because we
yeah,
didn't want to make people think they were all that real, you
yeah.
know.
Like not
But
that ultra realistic look like you'll see in like some of the French movies from the 2000s, like that real ultra realism. Like that's another thing about the 80s. It had that
right, right.
cheesiness, that practical, everything practical, which I love, versus CGI. But that because of that practicality, sometimes
Well,
it didn't look perfect. Sometimes it does look cheesy, and that makes it even better.
yeah. Well, the latest film that Tim Burton did, the with Michael Keaton, the sequel to Beetlejuice.
Oh yeah,
You could tell that a lot of that was done with practical effects, which he
mhm,
tried to do everything practically. He said that he could
yeah,
because it just fits that kind of a movie better than
it does. What did you think of it?
CGI.
Beetlejuice,
What?
Beetlejuice. What did you think of it? The sequel, Beetlejuice. I
Oh, I
really liked it.
enjoyed it. It was kind of like because it was a sequel and it had been some time since it.
Yeah,
I felt kind of like Tim and the writers threw everything into it, but the kitchen sink,
yeah,
or
yeah.
maybe they did throw the kitchen sink. But it was tremendously fun, especially if you like
Yeah, it
the
was a
first
lot of
one.
fun.
It was a lot of fun. So
Yeah, there was
I
some
think we need
things that
more films that are a lot of fun.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially the times we're in, we need some fun stuff going on. And there's a lot of serious horror that's been going on, like serious slow burn horror has been going on for years. We
Well,
need some return to like this stuff, type of stuff right here.
well, the one form of horror that I never appreciated was torture porn. That's
Like the Saw
the
movies.
Saw films. Anyway, I
Yeah, I
think
love
that
those ones.
gives people bad ideas sometimes.
I could definitely see that argument though, because I mean that is going the extreme with things.
Well,
And kind
fortunately,
of also putting a philosophy, a vigilante philosophy out there in a way too, you know?
right, right, you know, but the I don't know, torture porn seems to be over with for a while, and I for one, am glad of it.
Yeah, that goes through like the phases that horror goes through
Oh,
over the years. It's always the different ins and outs and stuff. Zombies were in for a long while, and then they took a break for a bit, and then slashers came back again in like the 2000s for a bit. Mostly all remakes, same as like we're seeing today with
well, it was like
the strangers.
I
The
really
strangers
liked
film.
the first couple of episodes. I had also read the scripts for it of The Living Dead before it even,
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
The Walking Dead.
got shot. Um, and I was like, oh, this is going to be good. But then, after a while,
Too
it's
much
like,
of a
how
thing.
many zombies can you see?
Exactly. That's what it is. It's just it's too
They
much. They go on too
we
much
gotta
with
put
things.
the zombies to bed for a while, so then down the road we
Yeah,
can
bring them
release
back
them again.
in an interesting way, maybe a different way. Because I
Yeah.
mean, that's the cycle that always goes with movies. But yeah, it just the key is just being throwing everything you can in there creatively in the way you can and just making it fun, which yeah, is exactly what this movie is. But yeah,
Right.
again, I want to be respectful for your time. But Deborah Brock, everybody, this is a great writer director of Slumber Party Massacre 2. If you haven't seen it for some reason and you sat through all this, and get on Tubi. I know it's
Well,
on
if you
Tubi
wanna
for sure.
see a horror film that's different, you know,
Yeah, absolutely. Oh,
Watch it.
absolutely.
You know, that was just done to be fun. Anyway,
Yeah,
and the ending is really what it appears to be.
right. Like I
Courtney
would,
does not end up being well. And we
yeah.
don't know if she's well because of what happened to her, or if
Or
she's
she's well.
imagining terrible things happening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the split that's always been there, and I think it's
Right.
better.
And
I'm happy. I'm
it,
actually
that's
happy that you're
intentional.
not explaining it. I'm happy that you're leaving it like that.
Yeah, well, I'm just being vague about it,
Yes, yeah.
but
Um,
if you think there's a split and you think, well, it could be this or it could be that, but she's definitely, unfortunately, been traumatized.
yeah,
You're right. You
yeah,
know,
yeah. It's like yes is the answer, basically.
right? Yes, is the answer.
Yeah. But
You
all
know,
right, everybody. I don't know what I'll be doing next. Maybe, like I said, possibly a stream of this movie later. But if not, something else. And Deborah, just hang on for a second. I'll thank you again. But all right, guys. Deborah Brock, everyone. Take care, guys.
yeah, it was fun.